All right. We're going to pause this here for a little bit here. Don't forget, Philly Godfather will join me at 5:30. I've been watching our post-game show, and I'll tell you what, man, we've upgraded a lot of things on our post-game show. And I like Kayla Santiago because she fights back with Seth, Mike Missinelli, and you got to hey, when you can argue and know how to argue on an Italian dinner table, okay? And you got Missinelli. See, it's not about having the truth and all the facts. It's whoever hollers the loudest. And see, she knows this. So she knows how to handle Italians, and she's got Seth. Very impressed with our JAKIB post-game show. And here's Kayla with us right now. Thank you so much for coming aboard. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be a part of your show. Always love watching it. So excited to be here and talk some birds and some Philly sports.
So are you enjoying being around those guys? A lot of high-end personalities, Kayla, that you have there on that on that set.
I'll say it's awesome. I actually watched them growing up and listened to them on the radio. So it's pretty cool to be all. It's funny because I think that they understand that when you go up there, you've got to put on a show. It's not just about, as you mentioned, talking about football. It's keeping it entertaining for the time that you need to. And I'm sure you understand that completely as well. So learning that side of it, just being a part of the football minds, it's really cool. And then watching the game in the green room, especially with Seth, since he's a former player, it's definitely a different experience, but it's been a ton of fun so far.
Okay, give me your overall assessment so far. First 5 weeks of the Birds, they've been what to you?
I think that they've been what we expected, and I think last week was the best game that they played. And I think for once we could say that it's not just a win is a win. Last week was a true win. And everybody said, listen, you're complaining about the Eagles and they're undefeated. We expect more. There's more that you expect from a guy who almost won the MVP last season and brought this team to the Super Bowl. And now they're finally in a stance where I think that they're starting to really get that offense together. Last week, I think, was the best game they played all season long, but that's got to continue. Right now, I think it's exactly what we expected in terms of the undefeated season. At least for me, I've had them winning up to this point.
They're not very good in the red zone right now. They're 27th in the NFL, and it's been on the soft side of the schedule. Now after this game, you get the Dolphins on the flip side. Then you start to see teams like the Bills, the Dolphins, the 49ers, the Cowboys. You got to buy in there somewhere. That's got to improve if they're going to want to beat those type of teams, I would think.
They need to improve. I think especially offensively. You look at this team right now, and it's like, okay, well, 1 week they're really good at running the ball. The next week they're getting everybody off in the offensive zone in terms of the receivers. And I think right now it needs to be a whole game where you're able to get a little bit of everything going. We saw that a bit last week. They didn't really use the runners. I don't think they needed to, but we talked about it on the postgame show as well. The most important thing right now is not having Jalen Hurts get hurt. Utilize those running backs. I couldn't stand last week when I believe it was 4th and goal and they're running Jalen Hurts. That doesn't make sense to me right there, or going for the 4th down rather. So you look at that and you say, okay, the offense on all cylinders needs to get going. I think the defense and Sean Desai, they completely turned it around. That's what everybody wants to see, because Jonathan Gannon, he didn't do that last year. Sean Desai is already doing that early on, and it's good to see, especially with the young defensive secondary.
The injuries to Jalen Carter and to Darius Slay, not that the Jets are going to sit there and are a juggernaut. Now, to me, I think you catch a small break here, because if Darius Slay and Carter are out against the Dolphins, I'd have an issue with that. But because the Jets don't really have a very good passing game, I'm wondering still, though, is there concern going into this game? Because, again, one thing they can do a little productive, and that the Jets can run the ball a little bit here. So do those injuries kind of worry you here?
They don't really worry me at all, and I'm right with you on that point. I'm not worried about the Jets' offense whatsoever. I'm really just not, because I think that even for some reason, if the Jets were able to get their offensive going, I think the Eagles have a better offense to be able to, quote-unquote, have a shootout. That's not what's going to happen to me. I think the Eagles are doing the perfect thing, because you look at that Miami matchup as well, and you say, okay, you need those guys in that game. It's a little bit more precautionary is what I'm looking at it as. Now, if they're not good to go the following week, then you say, okay, I worry a little bit, but you don't want to put Jalen Carter in there. And for some reason, he makes that ankle even worse. Give him a rest. I'm not worried about the Jets. They'll be absolutely fine. And let's reconvene the following week.
How do you think Jalen has played?
Jalen had his best game last week, but before that, I didn't love the system that he was running. I think it's a lot of him and Brian Johnson trying to get on the same page, but we've talked about it a little bit. You see Jalen so hesitant to run. And in my mind, that's Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson saying, do not get yourself hurt. And then Jalen's overthinking that a little bit. I can't stand when he runs a little bit and just stops like a deer in headlights and doesn't know where he's going. When you're Jalen Hurts, you either need to be confident in that run or don't run it at all. I don't want to see him get hurt either, but I think he's going to get more hurt if he stops and then lets all these linemen come at him and kind of take him down in that standpoint. That being said, I think last week was his best week of football, and he didn't play any preseason games, so I expected him to start out a little bit slow.
Are the Eagles overusing DeAndre Swift? And with this, I'm saying that, his workload when he was in Detroit, he was never really a red zone guy. They had another guy that had that distinction of being a red zone back. And then his carries up there in Detroit were anywhere from 7 to 8, somewhere in there. Now he's averaging 15 carries a game. So we're looking at a guy who's really not had that kind of production when it comes to carries per game. Do you think they're overusing him, or do you think it's this? Hey, that was, and by the way, Kayla, that's the third best O-line in pro football in Detroit. So it's not like he's running behind that much better of an offensive line. They're good up there with Penei Sewell and them dudes in Ragnow. Mm-hmm. So that's a productive line, but they were always worried about his injuries in Detroit. Do you think the Eagles are overusing him a little?
Durability definitely worries me just a little bit with DeAndre Swift, but I don't think that they're overusing him because you can see the difference when Kenny Gainwell is in the game versus DeAndre Swift. In my opinion, I truthfully think that this offensive line is made for a running back like Swift rather than Kenny Gainwell, and that's why they made that switch. Now, you look at games like we saw last week and even the week prior, they didn't really use the run game a lot, which I didn't love. At the same time, though, it gives Swift a chance to take a little bit of a breather. I think he's your number one guy. You always have to worry about injuries in the NFL. I do understand that, but I don't think they're overusing him at all. It takes a little bit of the pressure off of Jalen Hurts as well. And you got that offensive line. Right now, I know injuries can be an issue, but I'd say you've got nothing to worry about until you do have something to worry about.
Who's a better team right now, 49ers or Eagles?
That's tough. Listen, I think the 49ers are a very good team. I think they're a very complete team. I look at Philadelphia, though, and the adjustments they made last week, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and I do have to go with Philadelphia. I think you've got another year of Nick Sirianni. You've got Jalen Hurts right now, another year of him as well, and he's starting to really, really understand how this game works. The Eagles, in all cylinders, I really like them better than the 49ers. And you talk about the defensive front, and I know everybody says the secondary is so young, but if you got a guy like Sean Desai making those adjustments mid-game, and you got that line, their defense is very, very tough to get by. They've got one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. Their offense is spectacular. I would take the Philadelphia Eagles any day.
Okay, how about this one here? It looks like there's going to be a decision to be made on Nakobe Dean. And it looks like they could potentially start the kid. Would you really pull out a guy who's being considered one of the better and most productive linebackers in Nicholas Merle? Not that I think Nicholas Merle is the long-term answer to this, but, in today's NFL, don't you go with the hot hand? You got two guys that are really performing well. I think Zach Cunningham actually has helped improve the tackling, especially with the two D tackles and the way that they're playing. That's been an improvement from a year ago, really for the last 2 years. You went from 22 to 16th to now you're number one against the run because you have that whole dynamic. Now you're going to put a guy in who's coming off IR, hasn't really ever really played the position. Are you really going to take a guy out? How would you handle this?
It's a tough situation, but I do think that Murrow deserves that starting spot, and he's absolutely been playing like it. Now, Nakobe Dean, I think you come back, but this is the thing. When he comes back and he's ready to go, he doesn't have to face as much pressure now that Morrow's in that spot. Now, I think that you look at the situations and you look at different games and you say, maybe, okay, down the line when Dean is a little bit better and more healthy, then you start him. But I think it's a good situation, right? Morrow has been playing some very, very good football. Didn't have the best game last week, but you can see each week he's getting better and better. And you look at a guy like Dean who's going to come off an injury and you expect him just to start when this defense is really clicking with Sean Desai. Absolutely not. I think you stick with what works until it does not. You keep Morrow in there. You wait until Dean is fully healthy and ready to go. And if there's a situation where you've got to start Dean and he's out playing Morrow, okay, then you make the switch. But right now, don't put that pressure on the guy and just make what works work.
Couple last questions for you here. Who's the king of Philadelphia right now, Bryce Harper or Jalen Hurts?
That's a hard question, but I have to listen. I have to go with Bryce Harper. I mean, you watch the Phillies right now, and for the second consecutive year, they are making a deep playoff run. And the way that he just embraces Philadelphia, I get that he's not homegrown, but I have to go with Bryce because Philly, no matter what, it's always going to be a football town, even when the Eagles are bad, even when they're good. But you look at baseball, and the last time everybody's been so excited about the Phillies besides last year was back in 2011. Bryce Harper brought that back, and people are just so grown to him. When the Braves players said attaboy, they were making shirts about it. Everybody was on Harper's side. These fans just gravitate towards Bryce Harper. I probably say that right now because the Phillies just won last night. I understand it may be a little bit of recency bias, but Bryce Harper has got the city in a chokehold.
I'll tell you this too, Kayla. I've been now covering, and we're based in Philly, obviously, and so the fans are really like, it's like people I grew up with, man. They're going to talk all kinds of trash to you, but they're going to be the most passionate fans to you, and they're going to be always embracing because they're loyal to the soil. And when I watch a baseball game at Citizens Bank, or I look at the way that they play there, it's like a football atmosphere. Whether you're watching the Sixers, maybe not the Flyers so much yet, but the Eagles. I mean, it's a football mentality, or maybe it's just a Philadelphia sports mentality. It's not like they separate the sports. They have the same passion for all the sports.
It's the best city in the world, and I get chills every single time I watch any play. I mean, you look at the catch by Rojas last night. You look at the grand slam by Stott about a week ago, and it's just crazy. You just feel the energy, even if you're not at the ballpark. When you're scrolling through Twitter, it's Phillies, it's Eagles, it's Sixers preseason game. It's absolutely nuts. And it's just so fantastic. And I think that's why people gravitate towards it, because it's so much more than just baseball, than just hockey, than just football and basketball. It's truly like a family out there. And these players absolutely love it. And all the fans want is they want to have players that are going to love it and step up. You can see that Bryce Harper loves that. Jalen Hurts loves that. And that's what's really making it work. It's awesome to see. And it's really awesome for another year that these teams are so successful.
All right, I'm going to close it up with this. This is the reason I'm picking 28-16 for a score for this Jets game, is because they have not shown me the ability to close teams out yet. Funny, when I put a score like that, it's going to make the game look closer, but it's not going to be. If you know where I'm coming from, they're going to pretty much dominate it. But I think they've kept every team in games, probably maybe except for that Buccaneer game where you never really felt. But every other team almost had a chance at a last possession to get a chance to be in a position to win. So till they can show me they can close teams out, I'm going to keep the other team kind of in the room. That's where I'm going with 28-16 and why I'm going with 28-16. Yet I think the game will be more in their hands and it won't be what the score looks like. Does that make sense?
I do, and my score prediction is pretty much right there with you, 24-14. I have the Eagles winning. I think that the Jets, honestly, they get a touchdown in the fourth quarter. That doesn't really matter. I think Jake Elliott is going to go out there and do his thing once again. I don't see this game being worrisome. I don't see this game being close. I know everybody says, well, Darius Slay is out. Well, Jalen Carter is out. Well, technically, what it looks like from my viewpoint, the Jets offense is out because they have not proven anything so far this year. So I'm not worried about it. And once again, for whatever reason, if the Jets can get their offense going, the Eagles offense is going to be able to keep up ×2. It's not really a worrisome game. I do think that in this contest, I want to see the defense come out a little bit stronger like they did in that second half of last week, but it's not a worry at all. I hope I don't eat my words right now, but I am confident in this Eagles team to pick up another win and remain undefeated.
Well, you have a great call and a great time on Sunday on the post-game show. Folks, make sure you check out our post-game show on JAKIB following each and every single Eagles football game. She's doing a great job. She's a massive upgrade from some of the people we had last year. Fantastic stuff. Thank you so much. We're definitely going to do this again. Thank you, Kayla.
Thank you so much for having me. Go Birds.
You got it. That is Kayla Santiago jumping aboard with us. Fantastic. We appreciate her coming aboard. And don't forget once again to check her out when it comes to our post-game show. Guys, do me a favor. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you also understand one thing, by the way, with our fabulous friends at Hooters. Please do me a favor. 40th anniversary. If you get an opportunity to go into any one of the 7 locations near you in the Northeast area, you go to northeasthooters.com, find that location nearest you, and for you to be able to have yourself a great time. Football tonight, you got Colorado, Stanford. Saturday, college football. Sunday, you got NFL football, and also on Monday. If you don't want to go to any one of the places, go to HootersToGo.com. It's the 40th anniversary. NortheastHooters.com. That's NortheastHooters.com. And when you go into any one of the facilities, do me a favor, tell them Big Sil sent you.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.